Do you know what order panic is? It's that thing when you're at a restaurant with your family or your friends and you can't make a decision about what you want to eat. You've seen the whole menu, things look amazing, but the waiter has been to your table 3 times already and everyone is waiting on you. So you panic. A couple of years ago, I got to go on a road trip with some amazing friends, and we ended up in San Francisco, California. My friend Jamie had heard of this Japanese restaurant she wanted to find, so we walked for about an hour through the city and entered the restaurant through a broken green door in the back of an alley. To get into the restaurant, you had to climb up 2 flights of super narrow stairs. We had to walk in single file, and there were only like 4 or 5 tables in the entire restaurant. This was either going to be the best food of my entire life or the scene where I die in a horror movie. Once we're inside, the place is beautiful and smells like heaven. But then I panic. The waiter is standing at our table. We've already asked for more time twice. Everyone else has picked out what they're gonna eat, and I just say, I'll take what she's having. I was immediately relieved because the pressure was off, but I actually have no idea what Jamie ordered or what was about to appear in front of me. Minutes later, I am staring at a fish that still has its eyeballs and tastes only like vinegar and the ocean. I ate as much as I could to convince Jamie that I was cool, of course, but I threw up an hour later without telling anyone. Needless to say, I should have just gone with the safe California sushi roll. And there's the thing about order panic. I had 100% control over that situation, and I gave it up for eyeball fish. If I had just taken control and not panicked, I could have had a way better outcome. Right now in your life, you are becoming more responsible for your everyday choices than ever before. You can choose what sports to play, who you sit with at lunch, what you wear, what you watch, and what you eat. Which is awesome, right? Who doesn't love more freedom? You're also probably even more aware of the places you don't have control. It's a delicate balance of sweet, sweet freedom and living in a world of rules and consequences. In this series, we've been talking about sex. And if there's one area of your life where you do actually have control, it's over your body. It sounds weird at first, but think about it. Right now, you have control over what you eat. You can eat a whole pizza and a pint of ice cream, or you can eat some vegetables, which I would literally never do. You control what you drink, you control what you wear, you control when you sleep. In the same way, you have control over your sex life. Listen, we tend to think sex is something that's out of our control. We get in the moment with someone or in our feelings, and we have no control. How are we supposed to stop that? How do you fight against hormones and science? For some of you, sex is an obvious, eventual step that people take when they're in a relationship. It's not even something that needs to be controlled. It's just what happens. For some of you, maybe your sexual behavior has gotten accidentally out of control. It wasn't on purpose, but you've seen some things online that you can't unsee. You've sent some pictures that you can't get back, and you've done some things that you can't undo. For some of you, something has happened to you that was completely out of your control. Maybe you were pressured or forced into doing something that you did not want to do, and now you feel like you've lost all control over your sexuality. In some ways, we feel like we have all of the control over our sex lives, but in other ways, not so much. That's why sex is so complicated, because there's freedom in what we do with our bodies, but it doesn't always feel like freedom. It feels like we have so much control and no control at all. So what do we do? There's a guy named Paul who's really important in the Bible and in world history. He traveled and wrote and told anyone he met about what being free because of Jesus really meant. About being free from always having to be perfect, being free from having to figure things out on your own, being free from following a long list of rules. Paul talked to a lot of Jews, and for them, rules were huge. They had a rule for everything. So when Paul started talking about freedom from hundreds and hundreds of rules that they were exhausted from following, it changed their whole lives. When Jesus arrived on earth, he switched from talking about rules to talking about a relationship with God, a way to be close to him that didn't just have to do with if you were good enough or not. He talked about freedom, but as we all know, freedom can come with some complications. Listen to this. Paul said, Christ has truly set us free, but now make sure that you stay free and don't get tied up again in slavery to the rules. Christ has set us free. We are in control of the way that we act and the things that we do. This is awesome. But after hearing this, a lot of people did what we would probably do. They took this freedom from rules as permission to do absolutely whatever they want. We all know that just because we can make a decision doesn't mean that we should. Sometimes our freedom can end up in a big mess of bad choices. So Paul doubles back to clarify some things. He starts by saying this, you know, I am allowed to do anything. That's awesome. Imagine if your parents said, you can do anything you want, just stay in the house. Great, right? So you put the thermostat on 50 degrees. You buy 20 movies on your stepmom's Amazon account and build a campfire to roast marshmallows on top of the coffee table. And then your parents freak out. You're like, whoa, guys, you said I could do anything, which is true. They didn't tell you not to set the coffee table on fire to roast marshmallows, but that does not mean that what you did was smart. You know that. And that's kind of what Paul is saying when he adds this. I am allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. This verse is talking about the balance between freedom and responsibility. Yes, you can technically do anything. That's true. But just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. Just like the example of setting a fire on your coffee table, your parents gave you freedom, but you didn't make a responsible decision, which means what? You end up losing freedom. When it comes to your life and your body, you have a lot of freedom. In fact, you have more freedom than you have ever had. Can you hook up with that guy or girl? Yep. Can you send that picture? Sure. Can you look at that site? Absolutely. But Paul says the question isn't, can I do something? The question is actually, should I do something? Let's be real. No one is following your every move right now. And at some point, you're going to be alone or alone with someone. And in that moment, you will have the freedom to do whatever you want. You have freedom. You have control over your body. But mishandling freedom actually leads to less freedom and less control. And this is why Paul adds this. Even though I am allowed to do anything, I must not become a slave to anything. This takes Paul's earlier message one step further, because not only can something not be good for you, it can take control of you. You've seen this happen. But when we're responsible with our control, we get more and more freedom. Paul says that we are made to be in control, not to be controlled. We are free. But the only way to truly experience freedom is to be responsible with it. And when it comes to our sexuality, being responsible means taking control of what we experience, what we view, and what we do. Listen, you were made to be the boss of your body. When Paul used a word like slave to describe what it's like for us to be controlled by something or someone else, he chose the strongest language possible. Why? He wanted to make sure that people knew that when they were irresponsible with their physical freedom, they immediately became less free than they thought. Something or someone else became the boss of their body. One of the most important controls that you have over your body is the ability to say no. To say no to another person who is asking something from you that you're not okay with. To say no to yourself when you are tempted by something you should not have. To say no to the people around you who are trying to make rules about what makes you cool or valuable. Saying no is the most powerful freedom that you have. Sometimes we feel like saying no isn't an option. Do you ever feel afraid to say no, like you're giving something up or to miss out on something? Have you ever said no, but then someone else said yes for you? Have you ever wanted to say no, but you couldn't actually get yourself to say it? If any of this is true for you, then you may feel like you don't have control over your body or over your next sexual decision. If you feel like you've lost or given up control of your sexuality, how can you get back the freedom you've been given? First, you should talk about it, and this is a good place to start. Chances are good that your group leader has walked through some of the same stuff you're experiencing, and believe it or not, they are not going to judge you. Or you can talk to another adult you trust. Just let someone in on what you're dealing with. Everything is easier when you're not alone. Second, practice saying no to things that aren't good for you. Some of us have no problem saying no. It's personally one of my favorite words. But some of us need some practice. Say no to small stuff, like eating McDonald's after 9 p.m. or being out past midnight. These are small ways to take care of your body that will make the bigger no's feel easier. And third, decide ahead of time what you're saying no to. Here's the truth. A lot of sexual behavior isn't planned out. In other words, we generally don't plan to do what we did, send what we sent, or watch what we watched. It kind of happened in the moment, you know? A moment when, let's be honest, we give up control and stop thinking clearly. So the best time to decide what not to do is not in the moment, but before the moment, when you are in control. Remember, you were made to be the boss of your body. So this week, pre-decide what you're not going to do, what situations you're not going to be a part of, what choices you aren't going to make. Then go one step further and decide what you'll do to get out of the situation when you're in it. What will you say? Where will you go? Who will you tell? Make a plan. And then when you find yourself in a place where you have to make a decision, the decision will already be made. Now, listen. I brought it up earlier because some of you are thinking about the control that was taken from you, the sexual decision that someone else pressured you into or made without your consent. If that's you, first, listen to me. I am so sorry. That should have never happened to you. For you, I think one of the best things that you could do tonight is share that with someone. Your small group leader, your parents, me. You shouldn't have to process that alone. But I also want you to know that you were made to be the boss of your body, and you still can be. That thing that happened to you was never supposed to happen to you, and God can help you take back control of your body right now, even if you weren't given a choice before. Listen, this is a time in your life where you'll continually gain more freedom and more opportunity. With every year, that freedom will increase exponentially. The one big area that you'll experience that freedom is in relationships, your body, and sex. Being free, being in control, being the boss of your body means that only you can say yes, and you have the power to say no. The best possible way to experience that freedom is to be responsible with it, to proactively take charge of your body, your situations, and your choices. To decide in advance to not simply do what you're told or asked, but to be the leader, be the owner, and be in charge of your sex life right now and in the future. You, my beautiful friend, were made to be the boss of your body. And that starts right now.